So kind of the first question that's going to come up is what exactly is GVERSE data? And so GVERSE data is our effort to provide data, geological data, in an easy to read format for geographics. A lot of different vendors like IHS, Drilling Info, State Geological Surveys, wherever you're getting your information, some will sometimes come out into a format that's not readily available directly into geographics. Or we'll need to sometimes import multiple types of files in order to get everything that you need. So what this is going to kind of help with is a much simpler version of that, where you get well data, land data, and cultural data in one simple file. So first we'll take a little look at the well data. This is going to be provided in ASCII4 format, a .wb4 file. This imports directly into the ASCII4 option in Wellbase or Product Explorer for your well imports. This information is going to include header, tops, production data, any downhole data, for instance, IP, DST, core, completions, casing, tubing, any of that information that you're going to need about the well will be included all in that one file. Production information that's in there is going to be stored as monthly records, as Geographics typically reads. And from there, CUMEs are going to be calculated from that information. The data can be provided in NAD27 and NAD83 formats, depending on whatever project you're going to be working in, whatever project area. So you should be able to import anything into your project there. And currently, this is for Oklahoma data only. We'll look at expanding that to various other regions as we go along. The land data is going to be provided in a CDF format or a cartographic data file. This is again another format that's easily read directly into Geographics, and it can tie directly into the LandNet database. We'll kind of look at that here in a moment. So the land grid data imports directly into a land grid database, and you can also use it as display data, so you can display directly on the map. The cultural data, quarter calls and quarter calls can also be included. Quarter calls and quarter calls are going to be shape files as opposed to a CDF file. And that's just because they tend to be very large and very dense files. So the shape files handle that a little bit better. The land grid database imports directly into the LandNet module. So with that, you can actually use that information to respot surface and bottom hole locations using the batch well spotting tool directly in Wellbase, as opposed to importing that data from a shapefile. You don't really get that option. Those are display only layers. You can kind of get an idea of where your land grid is, but you can't correct any of the data afterwards. So then to kind of get an idea of what the resulting look will be, here's just a couple quick screenshots. There's shape outline of Oklahoma State, zoomed in feature showing off some of the cultural and the land grid information with the section lines, and then zoomed a little bit more to look at some of the well spots. So with that, let's kind of take a look at how that looks directly in a project. So I've got a project set up here showing some of this data. Right now, this is just the Blaine County data that I have. So roughly about 3,800 wells, give or take a bit there. But all that information should be included in here. So I'll have my scout ticket information up top with the header data. Comes with your lat longs, TDs, datum elevation information, and it comes with footage calls and your township section range data that's coming from the LandNet land grid. Other data is included in there as well, your completion, your casing, any wells that have production data, I can pull those up as well, and just get an idea of what some of the production records will look like. Again, all that information is stored in there as monthly production data, and then totaled up with the CUMEs up there at the top. You can kind of go through the various wells and get an idea of what some of that data is going to look like. Same with directional data. Directional data is included in there as well. My wells with directional data here. And look at the survey. Survey records are included in there with all the survey points, and then bottom hole latitude and longitude calculated based on that information. So again, all this information is coming from that ASCII4 file. So I don't have to import multiple files to get all this data in here. It's just one easy import. This data is coming from the Oklahoma Tax Commission, OTC, and the OCC as well as a couple other places. I think OU was one of them as well. Anthony, was there any that I was missing there?
I think that's it. The DNR, but I think that's the same as the OCC, but I think that's it.
Gotcha. Thank you. Um, yeah, so all that data is going to be populated and brought in there. So I won't have to do anything extra with any other imports. So the other part of that is going to be your land grid, cultural, and other information that you can spot directly on the map. So here's my map view. Like I said, there's the outline of the Oklahoma state with the Blaine County wells that I have in my project currently displayed over where Blaine County is. And I can zoom in there and take a look at that information, where I'll be able to see the cultural data in there as well: roads, streams, county outlines, state outline, or not state outlines, city outlines. Any of that information that I'm going to need there on the map is included in there. And as a CDF file, it's all easy to read and easy to label, so I don't have to change anything again with the shapefile coming in. It should all be included in there, and corrects for any kind of overpushing that's coming in. So those labels are a little bit easier to deal with a CDF file as opposed to your typical shape files. But like shape files or any of that information, I can still thematically map this information color coded on anything and change the presentation of these layers as well. That land grid data is going directly into the LandNet database. So I can go and look at that information in there as well. And like I said, I can use that again for batch well spotting back here in Wellbase. You have your batch well spotting tool, which you can use to spot surface hole locations, bottom hole locations. Only do it for wells that didn't have any lat long data imported, and then afterwards create a filter for any of those wells that didn't spot correctly, so you get an idea of which ones are still missing data somewhere. All that's already been calculated here, so I should have latitude and longitude posted directly there in the header data for all those wells. Get an idea of kind of what data I also have in these wells. What, again, like any other data that I have, I can start to post production data on those. So I'll toggle on my bubble maps here, get an idea of where my biggest producers are in the region. So all that's again coming from the production table that I have directly stored there in the database. So very easy to post all that information there. Your well postings that you post around the map, again, all coming there directly into Wellbase, and going into the various tables that they need to go to, so they can be posted from all that location as well. The cultural data, like I said, it's fairly straightforward on how it's handled. Again, that CDF file, not much needs to be changed on that end. Color coding is already handled as it comes in, based on the entity definitions for those files. So I don't have to go in there and manually set that like I typically need to do with shape files. All of that is handled automatically. Again, also with shape files, all that comes in as a singular entity whenever it's brought in. So if they're lines, if they're points, if they're polygons, you really only have the one option. Whereas with the CDF files, you'll have multiple options for different entities within their polygons, lines, posted text, and so on. Yeah, that's all the data there in Blaine County. So you can kind of get an idea of where wells are spotting in there. Some of these may be off a little bit still, based on some of the lat long or the what I'm trying to say, footage information that I have in there. I'll need to go back and batch well spot a couple of those, but you can kind of run through that and correct that as the data comes in. Yeah, so I think with all of that, that's all the data that we have in there currently. And like I said, over time, we'll be updating that with data coming in from more states outside of this. And I believe so just the Blaine County in this project right now, but we have this provided for the entire state of Oklahoma. All the information from those various sources there, the OTC and the OCC. So I believe with